Robert, I want you in the last sort of 5 minutes,
yeah.
and I'm going to grab it. I'm just going to bring your book to the screen because I'm proud to have this, and I look forward to meeting you and I get you to sign it. I've got to read this, but can you talk about because it's just arrived? Could you talk about this book because you have an interesting comment. How culture determined victory and defeat in the Second World War, World War II, the first culture war by yourself. And then we have got the esteemed, this is the ultimate history of World War, Rear Admiral Roger Lane, not CB. What, briefly in a few minutes, what was your inspiration for writing that? And what's the main headline for that? Where can people find you, buy it, etc.? Go for it, sir.
Thank you, Mark. But yeah, World War II, the first culture war. It's on. You can get it from Amazon, and you can also order it through your bookshop as well. Of course, basically, the realization is that Britain won the Second World War, and Britain and her allies, including the United States and the English-speaking world, essentially, because of ideas that were developed within medieval England, things that go back to the Anglo-Saxon times. So we call that English exceptionism, if you like, and I make no bones about that. But the ideas of representative democracy, horizontal lines of control rather than top-down governments, bottom-up choosing of leaders, free markets, private property, sound money, liberty, in an economy built on incentives and inducements. They were the real weapons that were unleashed on the Nazis, who were national socialists that believed in state control, that had price controls, that took over industry. First, took them into the Reichenswerk and Hermann Göring before all industry was put within the German Ministry of Defense. They were socialists. They were, of course, it was only socialist if you were the right ethnicity. If you were the wrong ethnicity, then you would be cheap labor or slave labor to be exploited. Pretty much similar to the vision of some in the UK and America that want more immigration. And we need to remember that the Nazis were not against immigration. In fact, there was Germany at the end of the Second World War, despite their extermination of Roma, of Sinti, of Jews and other ethnicities, was more ethnically diverse because they took in more people. They took in French factory workers. They took in slave labor from Eastern Europe, put them to work within their industry, cheap labor essentially. And it's there's a similarity towards those who want immigration into the UK now. Of course, they're not doing the dreadful things, not yet, at least, certainly not, and let's hope not. And hopefully that will never ever happen again. They won't be able to get away with it. Although, of course, we see in communist China the persecution of the Uyghur minority, something as well as also other religious groups. So these things can happen in the modern world. They can actually happen if we're not careful. So basically, we have the Nazis had a system which was based on state control, exploitation, and the Soviets had a similar system, and it didn't work. And they relied on us for their weapons, even their oil. They had the Caucasus under their control for most of the Second World War, a major oil producing region. Yet to get high octane fuel for planes, it was easier to take that oil from the Caucasus out through Iran to Britain and to the United States to be shipped back to the Soviet Union to then be used in fighter planes to take on the Luftwaffe. It was easier to do that and cheaper than for the Soviets to do it themselves, because they didn't have an economy properly based on incentives and inducements, and they didn't have meritocracy. They had an institutionalized system of corruption, kind of industrialized feudalism, where people were told what to do by a manager who was put there not because he was able, but because he knew the right people. A corrupt system, nepotism on an industrial scale. It's the bigger bigger than the corruption of the Biden crime family, if you can even believe that. But these ideas that were developed, made in Anglo-Saxon England, which we exported to the United States, made America the great country that it is, and the great ally that it became in the Second World War, the arsenal of democracy that provided so much of the weapons that would be used. And we've forgotten those values. We've forgotten the value of private enterprise and competition, and have a system which is essentially rigged in favor of those who say the right thing. Social advancement is now reserved for those who are on the right side politically, not for those who are the most able, who can provide the best products, who have the best ideas, who have the correct facts and the most persuasive arguments. It's about those who are politically on the right side, or indeed of the right ethnicity, and that's absolutely shameful. But I think they do that for a reason, because they want to put people against each other. But basically, the idea that I realized is that, some people say, oh, it's not battles that win war, it's logistics. Well, actually, it's culture which determines a country's logistics. There's many nations that have the same amount of resources as the United States, for instance, or of course the same population, but are unable to have a proper functioning economy, is because the United States, for instance, has the correct culture to have a properly functioning, growing economy, or at least did before they wanted to change it. And England, a small nation, along with the other parts of the United Kingdom, Northern Ireland, Wales, and Scotland, is a very small nation, yet had such a dramatic effect, not because we had the best logistics or the best, most resources. In fact, the reverse. We had a culture of incentives. We had one where there was a profit. We had a professionalized army that was highly trained rather than a mass conscript force. Which
Robert, I don't want to stop you in flow, but I am, because we're up against the time. But
the point is, we had something very special in England, and we're in danger of throwing it away on the altar of mass migration. And we need to preserve this. And the things which gave us victory in the Second World War, we need to understand what exactly that was. We need to understand how we need positive policies to grow our population. Our indigenous population needs to be invigorated within the UK. And of course, we need to get our country moving again by restoring our culture and our values that made us great and that made us unstoppable in the Second World War, that we're in danger of throwing away. And that's what the book's about. And we need to about what it is about, learning the lessons from the Second World War and applying them to this day and age, because we're in a struggle now.
Robert, I cannot thank you enough, and I want you back. Right, I'm going to play us out, and thank you so much for joining me. Just stay there. We'll have a conversation afterwards.